Mat Armstrong has spent over £1 million in documented rebuild costs, a Lamborghini he calls his biggest project loss, a Rolls-Royce linked to a Premier League footballer that cost £184,000 before a single bolt was turned, a Porsche that came out of a river for $130,000, and a Bugatti Chiron with a repair bill so extreme that the manufacturer themselves quoted $1.7 million, and then watched Armstrong attempt it without them. These are his most expensive rebuilds. The numbers are the story. The business behind the channel. Mat Armstrong's channel works because it feels honest. He buys broken things, shows you exactly what is wrong with them, and documents every stage of what it takes to make them right again. What the audience sees is the work. What sits underneath the work is a set of financial decisions that most businesses would classify as high risk, and most banks would decline to fund. He buys damaged vehicles at a fraction of their original value, invests significantly in parts, labor and time, and either sells the finished car or keeps it in a collection that has grown alongside the channel. The margin between purchase price and rebuild cost determines whether a project makes financial sense. And on the most expensive builds, the ones on this list, the margin is often narrow, sometimes negative, and occasionally entirely beside the point. Armstrong has described himself as someone who wings it. The finances of his most expensive projects suggest someone who is willing to take risks that most professional workshops would walk away from. The difference between those two things is what the channel has always been about. The Porsche GT3 RS, $130,000 and a river's worth of damage. The 992 generation Porsche 911 GT3 RS arrived at Armstrong's workshop from a salvage auction after its previous owner drove it into a river. The water damage was total, not surface level, not confined to the interior, but distributed throughout every electrical system, every sensor array, and every mechanical component in a car where those systems are deeply and intentionally interconnected. A new GT3 RS costs approximately $230,000. Armstrong paid $130,000 for the version that had been submerged. The gap between those figures represents the risk. Water damage in a car this complex cannot be fully assessed from outside. You disassemble to discover what needs replacing, and each replacement reveals what was being held together by the component you just removed. The previous owner contacted Armstrong after the sale to clarify details about what had actually happened. The clarification made the situation more difficult. He kept going. The parts bill climbed, the engine required replacement, suspension components, interior, electrical systems, each addressed in sequence, each revealing the next problem. The finished car returned to track specification. The financial return on a $130,000 purchase, measured against what the rebuild eventually cost, was tight. The engineering achievement of returning a river-drowned GT3 RS to circuit condition was not tight at all. The Mansory Rolls-Royce Wraith, £184,000 in, Mansory's factory as the finish line. In 2024, Armstrong bought a wrecked Mansory Rolls-Royce Wraith at auction for around £184,000. The car had once belonged to Marcus Rashford, who had originally paid approximately £700,000 for it. The Mansory conversion, bespoke bodywork, custom interior, extensive modifications throughout, created a parts situation that most professional workshops declined to engage with. You cannot replace a Mansory panel from a Rolls-Royce dealership. The two manufacturers' work overlaps in the car in ways that make sourcing a puzzle rather than a transaction. The purchase price alone made this one of Armstrong's most expensive acquisitions at the point of signing. What followed was months of rebuild work, a parts hunt that required navigating the gap between Mansory's bespoke specifications and what was practically available, and a conclusion that no other workshop on his channel's history had reached with a vehicle of this specification. The parts hunt took Armstrong to Mansory's factory in Germany. He drove the finished car there himself, not for a final inspection that revealed outstanding problems, for the final finishing work that confirmed the car was ready for it. A vehicle purchased at auction as a write-off, delivered under its own power to the company that had originally built it, with the rebuild complete. The total investment, purchase price plus rebuild costs across several months, made the Wraith one of the most expensive projects in the channel's history at that point. It was about to be overtaken. The Lamborghini Revuelto, £600,000 total, and his biggest project loss. The Lamborghini Revuelto is the most technically complex car Armstrong has ever rebuilt, and the project he himself has described as his biggest financial loss. The Revuelto is Lamborghini's first hybrid hypercar, a V12 engine combined with 3 electric motors, producing over 1,000 horsepower through a system of electronic architecture significantly more sophisticated than any conventional supercar. Armstrong took on the Revuelto rebuild at a total investment of approximately £600,000, including the purchase price of roughly €260,000 against a new value of over €700,000. The complexity of the hybrid system meant that the crash had not simply damaged components. It had triggered safety lockouts across the electronic architecture that prevented the engine from restarting regardless of what was physically repaired. Even after battery replacement, the car refused to start. The lockout was systemic. Official manufacturer support was unavailable for a salvage-titled vehicle through normal channels. Armstrong sourced alternative components, worked through the electronic system sequentially, and separated major chassis sections to inspect damage that was not visible from outside. Then the engine started on the first attempt after reassembly. He sold the finished car. The financial return on £600,000 total investment against the sale price of a rebuilt Revuelto left a margin that Armstrong himself has characterized as a loss. The word he used was biggest. For the most complex build of his career to that point, the numbers did not work out. He built it anyway. And the following project made the Revuelto look straightforward. The Bugatti Chiron Pur Sport, $1.9 million acquisition, $1.7 million repair bill, and a manufacturer that eventually changed its mind. This is not a simple story. It requires the details to be stated accurately because the inaccurate version, which has circulated widely, is considerably less interesting than what actually happened. The crashed Bugatti Chiron Pur Sport belongs to content creator Alex Gonzalez from Miami. After insurance paid out, Gonzalez bought his own wrecked car back from a Copart auction for approximately $1.9 million, a steep discount from the $4 to $4.5 million these hypercars typically command. Rather than accept the insurance settlement and move on, he brought Armstrong in to attempt the rebuild privately. The damage was severe. The front end had taken a serious impact. Airbags had deployed. Carbon fiber panels were cracked throughout. The gearbox housing had shattered. The monocoque had sustained structural damage. The headlights alone cost approximately $174,000 for a pair. Carbon fiber front fenders matched that figure at $200,000 each. The horseshoe grille surround would cost $93,000 to replace. A single section of the carbon hood cost $58,000. In total, the insurance company had assessed the repair cost at $1.7 million before declaring the car a total loss. Bugatti initially quoted $1.7 million for a factory repair. When Gonzalez declined, Bugatti refused to sell official parts and blacklisted the car's VIN, effectively preventing any independent rebuild from accessing the components it needed. Then, Bugatti CEO Mat Armstrong stepped in publicly. He raised genuine safety concerns about independent repairs on a car of this engineering complexity. The shattered gearbox housing and structural monocoque damage were not cosmetic problems. But rather than simply close the door, Rimac said he would support the project, and Bugatti eventually lifted the parts blacklist and reduced their repair estimates. Valvetronic stepped in to assist. The build progressed. The car started again. The project that Armstrong initially assessed as potentially beyond what he could achieve, the first time in his career he had encountered a rebuild and paused, and is now progressing toward completion. That pause is worth noting. Armstrong has driven into rivers, merged 2 Lamborghinis, rebuilt hybrid hypercars. He flew to Miami, inspected the Chiron, began pricing parts, and stopped, not permanently. But the moment of genuine hesitation, from a man who has built his entire career on refusing to hesitate, tells you more about the scale of this project than any parts price does. Those headlights cost more than a used Lamborghini Huracan. The total project cost, when completed, will represent the most expensive rebuild in Mat Armstrong's career by a considerable margin. Gonzalez's total commitment, $1.9 million to buy his own crashed car back, plus rebuild costs on top, places this in a category of automotive ambition that has very few precedents. What the most expensive builds reveal. Mat Armstrong's most expensive projects share a quality that the financial figures obscure. None of them were taken on because the numbers were attractive. The Revuelto cost him his biggest documented loss. The Bugatti presented the first genuine pause of his career. The Rolls-Royce required a trip to Germany to finish. The Porsche needed engine replacement after a river had done its worst. The expense is not incidental to the story. It is the story. A man who started by buying a crashed Audi for £600 and turned that decision into a career is now working on a project where the headlights alone cost more than the car that started everything. The scale changed, the approach never did. Subscribe to Drive Directive and tell us in the comments, which of Mat Armstrong's most expensive rebuilds do you think carried the most financial risk?